Do 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 boom do. All right. You didn't come here for my beatboxing, even though it's cool. You came here for runes. So what can I say? I like to build it up. So before I get into the system I've been working on, I thought we'd play around with, as in, learn a little bit about the other Futharks. Because they're important. And if we're going to turn... Oh, you do. I'll bet you do. You own a bunch of awesome books. You're a learned individual. I lost my train of thought. Whatever. Let's get into more important trains of thought. A Handbook of Rune Magic. Futhark. Look how cool it looks. Oh my god. Get your screenshots. Look at that. Ooh. Here we go. Let's make it super cool. Yeah. Now I'm in there. Look at that. Alright. That's enough of that. By Elder Thorson. He's playing the guitar. Published in 1984 by Samuel Advisor Incorporated, Box 612, York Beach. Is that Michigan? Missouri? Shit. I should know that. 1992. There we go. Transmitted in any form, by any means, electronic or mechanical, including photocopy without permission and writing. Oh shit, maybe I should not be doing this. No part of this publication may be reproduced, transmitted. Good thing I don't monetize. I don't know. What do you think, chat? Should I keep doing it? Should I go for it? I should have just skipped over it. Now I'm engaging in conspiracy. I really just wanted to do it in chapters, but I guess with this fucking shit in mind, the chapter 2 section. Alright. Let's do this in chunks and see how long I can get away with it for. Yes, just in case I forget. There you go. Odin. Yes, y'all know Stephen A. McNailan, don't you? Al Seriodkoti. Oh, look, I'm small now. The present work is actually a second version of a manuscript originally written in the Armanen system. I should interview that guy. I don't know what the hell you talk about, though. Which was completed in 1976 Common Era. Soon thereafter, I discovered the deeper, long-hidden power of the Elder Runic tradition, which is transpersonal and fundamentally independent of the misinterpretations and manipulations of uninformed individuals. This misinformation has unfortunately been the hallmark of almost all books on operant runology, which have appeared in recent years. In 1979, Common Era, the revised manuscript of Futhark was complete. However, it has taken 4 years for it to find a publisher with the ability to bring it before a readership. During the intervening years, I have continued my investigations into the runes on all levels, and some of my ideas have evolved based upon exoteric as well as esoteric work. Yeah, those words are like the themes of the week. Almost no changes have been made in the 1979 version, however, since it was and is fundamentally sound due to its foundation in the eternal traditional Futhark system, it is hoped that these more developed ideas will also be able to find a larger audience, and it is to that end which the Institute for Runic Studies, the Satru, and the Rune Guild were founded in 1980. Common Era as it stands, Futhark remains the first step in learning the ABCs of the esoteric wisdom of our Germanic heritage. And see, that's why I'm saying fuck and I'm reading it anyway. Because the renaissance of the Germanic soul is upon us, gentlemen. Contacts. See, here you go. Go ahead and buy the book and tell them Ophidrion sent you. Maybe they'll forgive me. Well, he did increase our traffic. I recommend, which the author is a Gulti or priest, are that guy and that guy. It is that guy. Introduction. Much has been hinted at concerning the runes and their magical power in recent books. However, none of these works have that's what it should say, delved into the practical magical uses of the ancient Germanic runes and the system they embody, and in which they are in turn contained. It is the avowed intention of this book to rectify this dismal state of affairs, to deal with the practical side of the half-forgotten, much-neglected runic system of magic and mysticism. This is still one of the most powerful forms of metaphysical thought available to the Westerner, and one which he himself developed. Yes, the Westerner. This is ours. This is actually our stuff. We have our own stuff, and it's cooler than the fucking desert cult stuff. Trust me. The roots of runic tradition have been hidden from our view for several hundred years, but now the long-awaited age has arrived, in which the power of the runic mysteries will again become manifest. Among English-speaking magicians, rune knowledge had been steadily on the decline since the days of King Canute, but their lore never completely died out, especially in Scandinavia, where runic incantations, or Galdrar, continued to be practiced until fairly recent times. This work is intended to invoke the runic force in the minds of all men and women so that their lore and mysterious power may again be born to rise to the level of their former splendor in the English-speaking world. The runes embody the greatest and the smallest secrets of nature, and they are the keys to those secrets, for they are indeed secrets themselves. That's what rune means, so yeah, I hope so. Too long have these magnificent tools of magic been allowed to atrophy in dusty tomes. Now their ways are again made known to those who would be wise. Rune lore represents an important part of the oldest tradition of initiatory wisdom magic known to the Germanic world. The ancient Goths, Scandinavians, Germans, and English all knew the power of the runes, and they were bound together by a mighty guild of rune masters who taught their craft throughout all the tribes of northern Europe. It would seem wise for the descendants of these forebears to turn to the runic power to regain the depths of their hoary wisdom. For if we are to believe their lore, these ancestors never died, but rather were reborn, generation after generation, always keeping their secrets with them, until now. They are us. Through the runic keys we may again unlock these secret recesses of the soul, and thus unleash wisdom and magical power for our own use today. The runes and the runic system, as an eternal expression of world laws, may be constantly put to new uses without in any way violating their timeless and archaic characteristics. Therefore, they are now used in systems of psychological integration and cosmological investigation, both of which are actually firmly based on precepts found in the Eddas. One of the most potent aspects of the runic system of magic and philosophy in its openness and lack of dogmatism. Information given in this book is intended to be a guide for the talented and inventive Vitki, who should use it as a stepping stone towards becoming a true philosopher in his or her own right. Again, the traditions of the Eddas and Sagas are the best indicators of the spiritual directions the Vitki should take in order to get the best results. In ancient times, every free man was his own priest. So it should be today. As far as a plan of development and initiation is concerned, it is suggested that the aspiring Vitki should read through the entire book, developing a personal version from the complete system given in the following pages. However, even today there exists a rune guild that provides a more systematic initiation for the dedicated Vitkar. This book is divided into 3 main sections containing the knowledge, theory, and practice of runecraft. This, coupled with other viable books on magic, forms the basis for a fairly advanced level of initiation. It is impossible to express the vastness of a system as all-encompassing as the Kabbalah or Vedic literature in a book of this or any other length. Putting even this basic system of mainly practical rune magic in one volume has been quite difficult. It is hoped that further interest in the runes will be kindled so that future books dealing with divination, cosmology, wisdom, lore, and so forth may be produced. There have been several books and articles written in the last few years that connected the National Socialist movement in Germany with the runic cult and rune magic. Indeed, the Nazis made use of the runic forms in their most external and manipulative aspects. The beginning rune Vitki of the day may take some strange comfort from the fact that the runes showed themselves to be such potent symbols in the 20th century, but it must be strongly emphasized that the runes, and indeed the Germanic spirit itself, was not at the heart of this bureaucratic blasphemy, but rather it was a sort of pseudo-Christian messianic mechanism that owned the soul of the Nazi party. Just say NSDAP. What's so fucking hard about that? We all know Nazi is a derogatory term. Much of the historical background of the runic aspects of the Nazi movement will be discussed in the first chapter of this book, for through an understanding of its perversions and our most sacred treasures, we may truly put its unwelcome specter to rest once and for all. An endeavor has been made throughout this book to remain as close as possible to the traditional form and spirit of rune lore, and to present a system as free as possible from any Judeo-Christian influence. I know, right? Fucking cucks, man. Too long has the Westerner suffered, bearing the cross of... There you go, that's fucking why. You see that? You see that right there? That's why he's a fucking apologist. 'Cause he's a Mason, motherfucker. Like, I don't know what that means. Too long has the Westerner suffered bearing the cross of alien fruits. They have had their chance and have failed time and again in their impotent effort to satisfy the depths of the Indo-European soul. Their aeon has come to an end. The time is ripe for a reemergence of the wisdom of the Arilols. The breakthrough of holy power must take place within the soul of each individual, and it is in this hope that this work has been wrought. And then, okay, that's his title. That's pretty cool, man. Look at that. He's got a, what is that? Hegel laws, and then that motherfucker right in there, the S. Which one's that again? I'm not going to get my other book, whatever. It's the one that means sun. It looks like an S. Talk about white pages. Rune knowledge. Definitions. Wolf hook. There we go. That's a common use. I do like the interpretation of the werewolf being a symbol for the awakened European soul. Werewolf in London. Ho ho ho. The first step in understanding rune lore is the understanding of the concept rune. A rune is not merely a letter in an old Germanic alphabet, but rather it bears the primary definition of secret, told you, or mysterium. This basic meaning may be easily compared to the use of the term arcana in connection with the tarot, my second favorite topic. Therefore, a rune is primarily a secret, holy concept or idea that must be expressed or dealt with in concealment. Excuse me. Throughout this work, rune should be understood first in the sense of a secret and holy concept. The word rune is indigenous to the Germanic group of languages, and it is found in all the ancient Germanic dialects. See Table 1.1 on page 2. The modern German cognate is raunen, to whisper. Rune is also found in Old Celtic languages, where it appears in Old Irish as rune, and in Middle Welsh as rhin, both with the meaning of mysterium, secret. It is probable that the Celts borrowed the semantic quality of this word from the Germanic languages. Rune developed from the Proto-Indo-European root roer, to roar. Later, this meaning was applied to each hieroglyphic figure that represented a rune, a unit of secret lore. It is this form that is inscribed as a symbol for a formless and timeless idea. Still later this symbol was incorporated into a system of writing that imparted a phonetic value to each symbol form. Now the rune has become mistakenly synonymous with the concept of letter as expressed in other languages. We got Table 1.1 on page 2. Gothic runa, the all runa, secret Volphalas. Use the term translate Greek. What the fuck is that? I don't know what that is. What the fuck is that? Fucking Greek, man. What's going on? Why is there Greek in my German book? Ugh. Sorry, I'm not gonna talk shit about Greeks. Alright. Only a certain number of the various forms of the rune horde were ever used as phonetic representations, which we will call letter runes, while a large number remained more or less within the purely ideographic realm. This latter group may be referred to as glyph runes. This work primarily deals with the letter runes and the magical system in which they developed. Although the glyph runes are an integral part of this system as well, it must be kept in mind that both groups are equally runic. The letter runes were standardized in the Futhark system, but the magical guilds of the time, according to particular numerological... In the Futhark system, by the magical guilds of the time, according to particular numerological criteria. I thought they were going somewhere else with that, my bad. Magical definitions. According to most scholars, the runes were ancient symbols used in writing, mainly on stone or metal. These symbols bore religious or magical significance for the people who inscribed them. This cannot be denied by the most dreary of scholars. For the rune Vidki, however, the signs take on a much richer and more expanded meaning that reveals their true nature and power as well as their historical and cosmic significance. The Vidki sees hieroglyphs of a highly complex nature in the forms of the runes. Investigation and research into intellectual and magical realms has revealed the runes as ideographs, expressing a process and flow of force and energy. Each rune has a threefold nature, which is also the threefold essence of the secrets slumbering within it. The points are form, ideographic and phonetic value, idea, symbolic concept, and number, its dynamic nature, revealing its relationship to other runes. So, numerological aspects, esoteric, data stack meaning, and using it as a letter. They describe energy flows and states as related to the self, to the planet, and ultimately to the multiverse. The runes summarize and graphically express separate world concepts that can be used as focal points for magical and mystical operations, both singly and in combination. Singly, as in singularly. Origin of the runes. Here we speak more of the origin of the runic shapes than of the origins of the mysteries they represent. The actual mysteries are timeless and were created or more properly, came into being with the emergence of the 9 worlds out of Ganungagap. In fact, the runes are important agents in this process of creation or shaping, and precede the arising of animate beings in the worlds. The runic forms may be spoken of in a somewhat more historical context. These shapes are ultimately born from the holy signs conceived in the minds of the Bronze Age priests and magicians, and probably much earlier, as abstract graphic expressions of the innermost content of their religious and magical teachings. See Figure 1.1. They are found in great abundance on the most ancient rock carvings in Scandinavia. Rudolf John Gorsleben describes the primal man sitting atop a mountain receiving conceptual flashes of inspiration, which he then emotionally expresses in markings that came to be those concepts. We might recognize some of these. Get your screenshots, everybody. Some Bronze Age ideographic rock carvings and figurations that were to evolve into runic shapes. Tell you what, I actually want one. So, Futhark, a Handbook of Rune Magic. In the earliest period, these so-called pre-runic signs remained totally ideographic or hieroglyphic. However, when contact was made with the Mediterranean cultures, Greece, the notion of phonetically representing language by symbols was slowly introduced into the Germanic territories. Many scholars believe that this introduction began in the 2nd century before Common Era, when the Cimbri and Teutons invaded the Italian peninsula and came into contact with the North Etruscan and Latin alphabets, while others believe that the runes were ultimately formulated by the Goths in the 1st and 2nd centuries Common Era, while that tribe was still on the Baltic coast. These theories are all very interesting and hold many truths, but this is not our main interest. It is important to notice that when the Germanic peoples choose a rune, cultic sign, to represent a sound in their language, they would usually, but not always, choose a shape that in some way resembled the corresponding Etruscan, Latin, or Greek character. This undoubtedly plays a large role in the formulation of Galdraur, and their associations with certain runic forms. Galdraur. Rar. The internal structure, ordering, naming, and symbolic content of these glyphs are totally unaffected by the Mediterranean cultures. There is a magical deep structure that governs these factors. This deep structure was well known by the priests and magicians of the Germanic cults, and they carefully formulated the runic ideology and transmitted it across tribal boundaries through pre-existing cultic channels. Through this ancient guild of rune masters, the runic system was able to maintain a high level of internal integrity despite crossing countless tribal lines over several centuries. As early as the 1st century CE, Tacitus describes the runes being used in fully developed divinatory rites. Mythically, it is through the god of magic, Odin, that the gods and men are able to receive rune wisdom. Odin is the first being to be fully initiated into the runic mysteries. That is, he first extracted the rune wisdom directly from its source and formulated it within his being in such a way that it could be communicated to other beings. Therefore, it is through the Odinic force that the runes may be perceived best. This initiatory myth... I gotta work on my breathing, you guys. This initiatory myth is represented in the Elder or Poetic Edda. In the song called Havamal, the sayings of Har the High One, or Odin, or shit that Odin says, stanzas 138 and 39 of this song read, I know that I hung on a windy tree all of the 9 nights, wounded by spear, and given to Odin, myself to myself, on that tree which no man knows from what root it rises. They dealt me no bread nor drinking horn. I looked down, I took up the runes, I took them screaming. I fell back from there. This describes an initiatory process of a shamanic type, it does, in which the initiate passes through the 9 worlds of the world tree to the realm of hell, or death, and momentarily enters her sphere. At that moment, the initiate receives the entire body of rune wisdom, and it is etched into his being. In the next instant, the initiate returns to Midgard with the rune wisdom permanently encoded and ready for use and communication. His story of the runes. The runic system may well have been fully developed by as early as 200 BCE. It is certain that the magico-religious practices of the ancient Germanic priesthood were aided by the use of many runic and/or pre-runic signs. For we still have these etched into stone all over Scandinavia. The ideographic stage of runic development is the cradle of rune magic. In this earliest period, the ideographs would appear in isolation. Soon, however, magical sound and number formulas, or galdrau, began to be produced, which were intended to have particular magical effects. Not long after this development, the runes were being used to write in the common Germanic dialect. In all of these stages of development, magical considerations were primary. All 3 types of runic formulations, ideographic, sound formulaic, and phonetic word representations, continued to be used side by side, and thus all 3 modes are valid for our modern runic practices. Examples of these types will be provided and interpreted in the practical sections of the book. Runes have been found carved on wood, stone, metal, and bone objects. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the runic talismans were crafted in wood, which, of course, rotted rather quickly. It is most important to remember that the runes were born from a magical tradition, not a purely linguistic one, and that this magical association never left them. As mentioned above, the runes began to be used to represent language phonetically soon after the Germanic peoples came into contact with the Mediterranean cultures in the 2nd century before Common Era. Inscriptions remain the principal mode of crafting runes. The greatest number of runic inscriptions are on rune stones, of which approximately 2,500 are known. There is a total of almost 5,000 runic artifacts in all. The Rune Stones were raised as sacred landmarks and memorials all over Scandinavian countries. I thought I was doing good. It's like yawn number 10. There are even controversial rune stones on the United States. Runes have marked the path of Nordic trade routes from Eastern Europe to Greenland and from the Arctic Circle to Greece and Constantinople. Writing and art. Only a few scattered instances of runes occur in written manuscripts, and few of them seem to have any overt magical intent. Although they may be reflections of magical practices, rune poems found in Anglo-Saxon and Scandinavian traditions are of extreme importance, and portions of these will be discussed under certain runes. The oldest manuscript containing runic symbols is the Abecedarium Nordmanicum from the 9th century CE. The Codex Runicus is a 14th century Danish manuscript written entirely in runes. It contains the laws of the province of Skåne in the Swedish period of the 30 Years' War. 30 Years' War? Oh, okay. The Swedish forces of Gustavus Adolphus used the runes as a kind of code to confuse Austrian intelligence. The glyph runes often are found incorporated into runic inscriptions. The most common of these is the Thorshamar, the Hammer of Thor, or Fjölfolt. Fjölfolt reminds me of something. This symbol represents the dynamic magical force of the Aesir and the explosive power of the Thunderer. The cross or sun wheel also is common from the Bronze Age onward. This ancient common European symbol was used to denote holy places and was later adopted by the Christians in their efforts to convert the folk who used it. More recently, of course, the Nazis received the runes as manipulative tools and made the Hakenkreuz their symbol, and the Schoiststaffel adopted the double S rune as their identifying mark. These latter are to a large degree imbalanced misdirections of the runic forces, if you say so, buddy. As we look around today, we still may see runic forms in proliferation. The peace symbol, so prevalent in the 60s, is in the form of the year rune of the younger Futhark, an alternate form of the Iwaz and Elhaz of the elder row. Ambulances now carry a bright blue Hegel rune in its latter letter rune form, which even includes a caduceus symbol. These and other examples give rise to the thought that there is surely something emotionally innate in these runic forms that rises to the surface repeatedly, no matter how much some attempt to suppress them with barren reason. The art of old Germanic architecture preserves the runes in the forms of the Fachwerk. The fuck is that? Half-timbered building style. I guess that answers my question, which has spread all over the world. See Figure 1.2. Originally, the timbers of the Fachwerk were placed in such a way as to form the shape of a rune. The magical significance of this is that the runic power would then be imparted to the building and its inhabitants. This custom continued on into the days when the builders no longer knew why the timbers were laid in these particular ways, and it became simple tradition. The now familiar Dutch hex signs also are ultimately derived from a runic source. Oh, that's fucking embossed, dude. Look at that. That's how I'll build my pyramid. Examples of runic patterns found in German have timber built. What the fuck's a plastic art? In the plastic arts, we find the famous example of the golden ritual drinking horns of Galahus. On these horns, there are human figures, in particular stances and postures that are certainly representations of cultic signs and runes. Certainly, the style of these figures is employed in this book to represent the various Runastolker, sometimes called the runic asanans. Another more obscure example of this practice is the so-called Hergot von Bentheim, Lord God of Bentheim. Home of Bent? Get bent. That's where I live. This curious piece of statuary is based on a wooden original that was brought into the town of Bentheim from a nearby Thingstead. What the fuck's a Thingstead? The arms of the figure are bent in the shape of the Anglo-Frisian rune. See the T rune for an explanation of the symbol complex involved here. Talk original T posting right there. The stone reconstruction was then given a Christian significance. However, even today it is used as an object on which solemn oaths are sworn. Historically, there have been 3 ancient codifications of the letter runes. The Elder Futhark having 24, the Anglo-Saxon or Frisian row, 33 runes, and the Norse or younger Futhark having 16 runes. So here you go. Get your screenshots. This would be the Elder. This is good shit, right? Her. Ah, shut up. I'm trying to get a screenshot, bitch. Show my face. Bam. And you got your younger Futhark. Bloop. And then you got the Anglo-Saxon. They went into deets. Wouldn't you say? Oh my goodness. The latter two are modifications of the first one. That these modifications took place within a traditionally controlled cult of some type is well indicated by the methodical manner in which the order and correspondences of the runes were maintained. Information on some of these correspondences may be found in the table of correspondences printed as Appendix D. This book deals more or less exclusively Irish wristwatch with the system of the Elder Futhark, which was the rule between I forget what those meant, CA 200 BCE and 800 CE. However, the other two systems are also magically valid. The younger Futhark began to be developed in the 17th century, and this development was complete by about 800 CE, while the Anglo-Saxon Futhark was able to survive the Christianization process until the 10th century CE. Among all the various systems, the shapes of individual runes, and in many cases their names, often would be altered. This sometimes offers us valuable clues and correspondences to their inner nature. Much of this lore will be revealed in the sections on the individual runes. It is hoped that talented Vitkar will be inspired by these other systems and develop them further for modern magical practice. Bet. House marks and heraldry. In the Middle Ages and after, in the continental Germanic territory, the runes were driven underground, where they found further expression through various graphic arts attributed to the early nobility and farmers. House marks are symbolic of literal monograms formed from two or more runes, often stylistically modified. These house marks were often used as identification for property, and in the Middle Ages they were inscribed into objects owned by lord and freeman. In contrast to crests and coats of arms, the house mark could be drawn without color and by an unpracticed hand. Although the tradition and form of the house mark grew out of the more elaborate heraldic art, it developed separately from it, but was later reincorporated beside the crest. The house mark also could be used as a signature after the fashion of a monogram. According to Guido von List, the history of house marks is a three-stage development. In the first period, which lasted through the middle of the 14th century, the marks still were formed and interpreted according to ancient runes and holy signs, and their value was highly symbolic and cultic. An example of this is shown in Figure 1.6 on page 10. The second historical period spans the time from the middle of the 15th century to the middle of the 18th century. In this era, the runic forms of the letters making up the last name or initials of the first and last names were welded together into one form. See Figure 1.7. Here it can be seen that runes have lost their deeper symbolic value in this period. They have been transformed from purely cultic forms to phonetic symbols used to write the name. After the second historical period, the use of runes was dropped. Latin script was used, usually to form the initials of a person's name, as shown in Figure 1.8. Oh, this is cool. So they basically created bind runes a long time ago, and this is a method that chaos magicians use to make sigils today. They would look at this and just call them fucking sigils. 2 thorns of life, and death with the hammer of Thor between them. Terror greetings between life and death. Nice. Stonemason signs, merchant signs, and master's signs may in some cases be interpreted according to the same rules that govern the formation and reading of housemarks. The 3-stage history of housemarks is most revealing as to the degeneration of the use of runes into modern times, but by retracting the path of the rune, Vitki may regain some of what otherwise would have been lost. Heraldic art is an extremely vast topic, and it is beyond the scope of this book to deal with its runic implications. Let it simply and tentatively be said that the runes may be found in heraldic art in 2 ways. Eins, they may be embodied in the color pattern that composes the coat of arms, or zwei, the concept of the rune may be concealed by a symbolic form or figure other than the shape of the runic symbol itself. A note on the tarot and runes. Some German investigators of this century have guessed that the runes actually are the origin of the tarot system of the major arcana. This may or may not be true, but there may have been some point at which the 2 systems came into contact. In any event, the runes, of course, have a documented past that goes back much further than documentation for the tarot. Appendix D provides some conjectural tarot correspondences, and the commentaries on the individual runes occasionally give some interesting parallels, but it is up to each interested Vitki to come to his or her own conclusions. Did I just say your own twice? Runic Practices. As mentioned above, the runes are found carved on wood, stone, and metal and bone objects. Wood is most certainly the favorite medium for portraying runes because it vibrates and it's alive. You can store data in it, especially for magic purposes. Fuck yeah. Words for pieces of wood associated with the runes are numerous. 3 Old Norse examples of this connection would be the words stafir, stav, letter, secret lore, tein, twig, talisman, word for divination, and Hulter, lot for divination, talismanic object, on which runes are also carved. There are also a few stone talismans, but of course the large rune stones for cultic or funeral ceremonial purposes represent the most numerous runic inscriptions in stone. Metal was extremely popular for talismanic purposes. The bracteatus, thin metal discs inscribed with runes and various other designs, represent an important tradition in magical runic practice. Other, more utilitarian objects made of metal, especially swords, were also inscribed with runes in order to impart special magical powers to them, so that they might perform their function with more distinction, or protect the user. Bone objects are also not uncommon, and these usually are connected with magic practices as well. The runes were carved with either knife points or special pointed instruments dedicated to the runic art. One of the most interesting runic practices is that the further concealing the magical formula with intricately devised codes, these codes were created in order to make the messages more secret and therefore more effective magically, and also less likely to be understood by the uninitiated. The basis of all the runic codes is the numerical value of the runes. The section of this book dealing with talismanic magic will delve into these traditions on a practical basis. Both the younger and elder Futharks are divided into 3 groups called Aetir, or families. The Futharks, represented in figures... Oh, wait, Aetir? That sounds rather similar to Aesir. Etymological similarity implication being that the Aesir are your family. The Futharks represented in figures 1.3-5 are divided in just this way. Through this system, a rune may be represented by a twofold numerical formula. For example, the fuck is that? Is would be indicated by the formula 1.2 because it is the first 8 and the second rune from the left. This is the basic principle upon which magical runic codes work. It should be noted that in the case of the younger Futhark, a curious and uniform alteration to the order of the Aetir took place for purposes of magical codes. Okay. These cryptic runic systems were most highly developed in the younger Futhark period. However, they most certainly were known and used in the older period. Since ancient representations of the Elder Row are also clearly divided into Aether, two of the most remarkable methods of making secret runic codes are known by the names branch runes on Kvistrunar, and tent runes on Thjaldrunar. An example of the tent rune method is shown in figure 1.10. Figure 1.10, tent rune method, here used to spell the name Thorvaldir. That's cool. These Thjaldrunar should be read in a clockwise direction, beginning on the left. Hence, a numerical formula of 1, 3, 3, 7, 1, 5, 1, 2, 1, 4, 3, 5, 3, 8, and 2, 7 appears. Well, let me see. 1. Okay, hold on. 1, 3, 3, 7. Okay, so there's sets. 1, 3, 3, 7. So this is 2 letters. Gotcha. Okay. And then 1, 5, 1, 2. 1, 5, 1, 2. 1, 4, 3, 5. 1, 4, 3, 5. Gotcha. Okay. Except one may portray a single rune with a single glyph in the system. An example representing the magical formula Ekvidki, I, the magician, appears in figure 1.11. The strokes to the left of the vertical indicate the row, and those to the right reveal the runic position. Note that a change of a word in the formula is indicated by the upward or downward direction of the H stroke. What's going on here? Runes may be magically used for any way. Sorry, I'm trying to figure this one out real quick. What's the deal? Representing a magic formula appears if it was the strokes to the left of the vertical line indicate the row. So 8, 3, rune 3, 8, 1, rune 5. What's the significance of the downward? And those to the right reveal the runic position. Note that a change of word in the formula is indicated by the upward or downward direction. Okay. Wait a minute. What? Change of word? The fuck does that mean? Okay. No. So this is 2 words. Et vidki. Gotcha. Okay. Alright. So you would write this in an alternating fashion. Understood. Okay. Runes may be magically used in a wide variety of ways. The most common method of rune magic in days of yore was probably talismanic. That is, runes were inscribed into various objects and infused with psychic power in order to effect some change in the Vidki, or his environment. A dramatic example of this is provided by the Egilasa, chapter 44, where we read that the hero Egil suspects that there is poison in a drink that has been given to him. So he stabs the palm of his hand, carves runes on the drinking horn, and colors the runic forms with his blood. The horn shatters, and the poison flows away. Hundreds of runic talismans have survived. Today, we may study these in order to gain a deeper understanding of the magical techniques used to create them. The use of poetic runic incantations, also was quite common as a method. The poetic Ada, as well as numerous runic artifacts, speak with the voice of many of these ancient runic incantations. The practice of Stadhagaldor, posture magic or incantation, is evidenced by the drinking horns of Galahus, which portray a variety of magic formulas, some of them in the shapes of humanoid figures and runic postures. Later, Icelandic customs confirm this usage. For example, the teaching of the alphabet to young children by having them strike a posture that resembles a letter. All of these practices will be dealt with in detail in the practical portion of this book. Another important use of the runes, which falls outside the scope of the present work, is that of divination. The runic forms often were carved into pieces of wood cast into a white cloth and then interpreted according to strict criteria. The Roman historian Tacitus reports on this practice among the continental Germans in the 1st century CE. All of the methods mentioned above are valid and extremely potent for magical purposes today. The runes and holy signs may be used as focal points for evocatory magic and meditation, as well as self-transmutation and mystical communication. Runes are especially valuable in magical works concerning victory, success, protection, rescue from restriction, love, and the gaining of wisdom. And I have been on for almost a fucking hour. I'm getting tired. So I will continue this book at a later time. Thank you for joining me, Mr. Gunshine. I will catch you on the other side of the internet.